Yes, I'm in the way back here from Pax Europiana, my last day in Moldova, and I went to European Gagauzia to call for more support for Gagauzia, but for all Moldova. What is needed, obviously, you see, there is significant lack of investment. There was, of course, the Soviet Union disaster before World War II disaster, before the Russian Empire disaster, before World War I the disaster, and only disaster here at this controversial borderlands between Russia and Europe in the past. And now it's, of course, beautiful European Moldova. And it's beautiful Ukraine on the other side, which is under the hammer blows of Russian invasion, and they are defending like heroes. And what can we do? You know, we of course have to rely on the Americans for military defense, but what we can really do is of course financial support, and also political institutional support. This is the task of Europe in this sharing of task between NATO and the EU. So this is what we need to do. For Moldova, we need a 5 billion euro package, 500 million each single year for the next 10 years out of this 1.5 trillion package. And we need significant financial support in terms of infrastructure, which is probably additional to the 500 million. The highways, the railways, the electricity infrastructure. All this needs to be done on a countrywide basis, but also we focus on European Gagauzia in the south of west, southeast, and also for the whole of the south, for the whole of the Bessarabia. I've called already for European co-managed regions, but nobody is listening to me. And then we have a war which is much more expensive than what I'm proposing. Because if we would have cared before from 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, the war of 21 would have maybe avoided. You know, it's not we that started the war, don't get me wrong, it's the responsibility of Putin. But if we would have done the defense of Ukraine very clear as a future EU member, would he have dared to attack? I don't think so. And now, anyhow, the damage is done and we have so much damage and somebody has to pay it. The Ukrainians cannot pay it. We have to give them 5 billion euros a day, monthly now for keeping up the state. Imagine this. And man, my proposal to give a good investment package would have been much more cheaper than the 700 billion, which all in all will cost to fix Ukraine and to bring it into the EU. And part of it, anyhow, forever lost, not forever lost, we will all get back once, like with Eastern Germany, but for now, until the fall of Putin. Yes, guys, and I said it very clearly in my article today in the Die Presse. It is not to be expected there will be peace in the East. Russia will fall apart afterwards and decline in civil war. And we will have a big mess over there. And then, what we then do? I mean, we need more unity in NATO and EU, and we need to be faster. And we need to stabilize at least our partners in Ukraine as members, and Moldova and Georgia and the Western Balkans. And it can be done. And the amount I propose with 1.5 trillion includes European rearmament, reconstruction of Ukraine. It includes obviously also then the development of the countries towards European standards and their integration in the European Union. They said very clearly that the Georgians are already very advanced. The Moldovans have really done a lot of work now to get all this done. Now in terms of infrastructure, very, very, very good. With this questionnaire I'm talking. But they are now really Europeanizing very fast. Obviously, I call for a more, in a way they call it extreme, but the euro for all of them, the customs union immediately, and a kind of uncompromising Europeanization agenda, which is like not waiting until the Europeans are ready, because they are never ready for something. And then we just do the euro first, like we did it in Montenegro and Kosovo so successfully. Why is Kosovo and Montenegro now so advanced when they were by far the poorest of all Western Balkan countries in the history? Kosovo even had the war, and Montenegro was completely neglected and is also not so blessed by the geography with this kind of fertile land. You don't find in Montenegro at all. A little bit, you know, in the around Podgorica, but here you have a multiple of such opportunities. Yes, we need to be a bit more generous from the West. And the 1.5 trillion package which I proposed, that's about the GDP of Russia. Let's put this yearly GDP, let's put that over 10 years into the Eastern European infrastructure, integration, reconstruction, but build it systematically as European countries already from the scratch in terms of regulatory and infrastructure affairs. This is much better than doing anything of like we wait and we do it a bit different. We put them just in a European community which Macron invents, or in the internal market kind of fantasy which Gerard now says. No, we will do it inside the political union, and political unification will come fast, economic unification will come fast, and we do it by the euro and by the customs union, because that's the nature of our unification system. They are already in a free trade area, so the next one is the customs union and the monetary union, and the internal market is then of course the next one, and then the political union. But if they want, they can be already in the political union. Why not empower them? So you also make them responsible, and they can vote with us, you know, and then we have more majority voting, absolutely long overdue and anyhow necessary. So let's get this done, and let's get this done faster, and let's be more successful united, because it will be also deflationary to have the people all in the common European labor market, as I say so since a long time. To have them in the euro will be deflationary, it will be more competition, that's very good. We don't need massive price increases. It is also very good for our common energy market, for our common agriculture market, and we have 25 kilometers to go to Chisinau. You see all these agriculture facilities here on the side, some of them inherited from the Soviet Union, some of them left over, some of them now renovated, like this castle I showed you. But outside there is still significant work to be done, and this needs European funding to wait for the fiscal capacities of this country and their repaying capacity to carry out this huge infrastructure task of building the highways, which were never built because they built the highways to Russia. They built the railway to Russia. They built everything to the east. Yeah. Now these countries need to build every infrastructure on the European regulatory and standards and harmonized with the European market, yeah, from day one. That means for the railway in Ukraine, for example, huge investments to turn them fully towards the European gauge system. The electricity system we have started under the threat of the war. When now under the war pressure, now it took so long. I don't know why it took so war to Europeanize the electricity system. The same is for the railway system. Why are we so modest on that one and waiting? Yeah? Europeanize the electricity system, Europeanize the railway system, Europeanize everything, and do it fast. There will be no return to some kind of a Russian empire or some kind of Soviet empire near. No, these countries really want to be part of the West, and that costs something now in the transition, but it's an investment. Yeah, it's an investment and it will pay back. Of course, 1.5 trillion is a lot, but if I'm thinking about and seeing the enormous cost in Ukraine, maybe this is even not enough. Yeah, because I included in the package, I included the cost of European rearmament. Maybe we need much more rearmament. And the 100 billion of Germany, we probably, yeah, of course they do the F-35 now. I'm very happy with this decision, because we need a joint strike fighter of NATO. But we don't need 7 different airplanes of NATO, no Swedish, no French, no. It's enough to have one very important, very good strike fighter, where everybody really is afraid. And that is, of course, very important for our deterrence. And of course, you know, we need to come to terms together to build and to be successful. And the infrastructure costs are huge. I made already all this planning for the infrastructure, fast trains and all this. 30 kilometers to go. Very good. Chisinau. These are all very centralist countries, like also Ukraine, but especially Moldova, but also Georgia. Very centralistic countries. They don't like federalism. They don't like decentralization. They are all very, very afraid of a breaking away of regions, and they have already this Russian breakaway regions where Gagauzia is now integrated, but Transnistria is a case. Then you have, of course, Crimea occupied, and Donbass occupied, and Kherson occupied, and Mariupol occupied, not fully, but mostly. Then you have South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and you have Bergkarabakh in Azerbaijan, and all these issues. And the only way to do it is with significant European support and with significant European funding to stay inside the countries they are part of. but of course with regional political and economic autonomy. And of course with respect to minority rights and regional, that's the European way of thinking, that's what we do, that's the European model. And we need to develop that, and we need to make sure that all regions with all their potential are really successful and have regional government, regional political party funding for their activities, and the whole country and the whole nation and all people really participate in the economic life successfully on an equitable basis. And then you mobilize all the country's resources in terms of land, in terms of people, in terms of ideas, in terms of natural resources, and then countries are very successful under European conditions, because we are based on freedom, equality and regional competition, and on competition between free people. This is how it works, and this is very, very good, yeah? And it is the way Europe works, and we have very rich regions because of this. And we have regulatory achievements in all aspects, from road infrastructure to road safety to agriculture to social harmony and to the welfare systems. And where we don't have it, we have to improve it. Chisinau 28. So I'm rolling back into Chisinau. It was a half-a-day trip to Gagauzia. I was only there once, but I have it in best memory, and I went there in order to show that this could be the model region where we can show how Europe can integrate successfully regions according to our European regional economic model into, even when they are reluctant, they are getting a lot of support, and then there is political autonomy, and then there is of course a good development in that region. Then they are ready to come back fully in the political system of that country, like in that case Moldova, and in the European Union. And of course based on the NATO membership in the alliance and on EU membership as political equal partner of a EU of 37 member states, and based on the firm fundament of the euro. And the reason why we have inflation is not internal, some kind of problems of the euro, that the euro is wrong, which some of the analysts are saying, or that the central bank is managing the euro wrongly. Okay, you can discuss that, but the central bank is doing much of this kind of the equality necessary redistribution system, which normally we should do by the fiscal system and not by the monetary system. And then the problem is as well that we have blocked our labor and our goods markets because of the protectionist French disaster supported by Kurz and the other protectionists, and our labor market closing. So we need to open the labor market to a full pan-European labor market, and in general to be more open on the labor market for immigration. And then we have deflationary trends, and that's very good for the economy obviously, and for the people as well, because inflation is not helping. Of course, you don't need to flood the labor market and the goods market, but to need it reasonable open. That is absolutely the logic of economics, and that is very important. So open the labor market for all Europeans, including the Moldovans and the Ukrainians, that they don't have to dream about going to the Russian labor market, as they have 30 years now done, and before as well they were part of the Russian labor market, and that was not very good for them and not very good for us. So let's get them in. And so that's very important. We have to compete here in the labor market access between Russian labor market and European labor market. And Moldovans and Ukrainians and Georgians should come to the European labor market. It's so logical. So why are we so protectionist? I'm so happy Kurz is gone, because and Köstinger is gone as well. I really didn't like them. So situation is also on the protectionist fronts. We need of course to include these countries now. For 6 years I said, let's open Ukraine fully into the customs union, integrate. Now in the war it's happening. Now we have basically removed all the tariffs for 1 year only, because our protectionist chicken lobbies and timber lobbies have insisted on just 1 year. Do you think the war is over, and why was just 1 year? So put Ukraine fully in the customs union, the Western Balkans fully in the customs union, and also Moldova and Georgia fully in the customs union. Then do the 10 missing free trade agreements. If you want to fight inflation and be a richer continent, America has saved Ukraine now. Let's conclude a free trade agreement with America. Let's conclude a free trade agreement with Mercosur, Australia, New Zealand, African Union, Gulf Cooperation Council, and with ASEAN and India, and with Pakistan, and I think Uzbekistan. That was the list. I think I roughly got the 10 right in the free trade agreements, which we have not done because of French protectionism and the Austrian complicity. and all this whatever water cars and courts and they're kind of no idea nonsense. I talk economics, yeah, blah blah blah. And so how beautiful it is here, and they all want to be in the European Union. And here in Moldova also the people are very disappointed. Yeah, I met one guy from working from the whatever he was. I don't want to quote him because again it didn't give me permission. But he told me he's very disappointed because of the European Union doing so little for the country here. They're in the absolute crisis of the century. Not, of course, not the World War II, but you know, it's a very big crisis for Moldova here, the Ukraine war. They're under pressure from Ukraine for not doing enough. They're under pressure from Russia for doing too much. And the European Union is doing too little for them. Yeah? And then they are confused. And I come here and I say join NATO and join the EU and adopt the Euro, and they look at me, oh, what are you saying? Yeah? By the way, they have 12% flat tax, and that's one of the reasons why this country is booming. They also have, I don't know, the cadastre system, the agricultural support system, I don't know, but I know they have really huge winelands, and I will taste some of the wine tonight again, or maybe I will stay with Chisinau beer, and I will keep you posted on Pax Europiana. But I say, if we continue to fail the nations in the Eastern Europe with our lack of courage, funding, with this kind of spendthrifty Merkel and the rejectionist Macron, and we do as if these countries are not in Europe and Europe doesn't exist, and we just don't do anything, we just continue the normal business because we are afraid of our own decisions, and we are afraid of Russia, and we are afraid of the cost, and we are afraid of the responsibility, and then the whole thing blows up in our faces. Yeah? And that's what happened in 2022, and I warned for the last 10 years for it. Yeah? Since basically, I think since 2012 I restarted my public affairs activities in the Balkans, and then 2016 in Ukraine, warning that we are in an unsustainable situation because of the Russian aggression, because of Putin's re-elections in 2012, and because of his very anti-European agenda, from Serbia to Bosnia to Kosovo, to all the provocations and brutality, and all his anti-European agenda in gas and in politics and funding political parties. And we are in the mess. We are in the mess now, basically a decade of Putin, if I'm Putin's real war of revenge from 2012 on, when he was elected the third time against the constitution of Russia, basically illegitimately, and he made this kind of rochade with Medvedev, and then he came back bent on revenge, yeah, and he put the revenge on Ukraine, on Serbia, and he is blocking all the things, yeah, and he buys the European politicians for doing what he wants, yeah, and some of them have gone east. That's the problem. Schüssel, Schröder, it's agents of Putin. That's the problem we have here, and Moldova pays the price. I mean, look how wonderful this country could be already under European regulatory, political, internal market conditions. Yeah? And all this regional poverty which we have seen today and which we face here, they could be much more different if we would be in the EU agricultural market, internal market, energy market, digital market, and the customs union and the euro, obviously. So this is the story here of my trip to Moldova, and I call for decency, I call for more support, and I call for Europe to be generous. Here is no highway. That's the reality when you go from Chisinau to Comrade. You go on these country roads, it's nice, but where is the European highway to Bucharest? Where is the European highway to Kiev? Where is the European highways? The real European highways we have now in the Balkans, because of more peace and more support. And also the Western Balkan Investment Initiative, much more generous. The Western Balkan 6 are 70 million, and the three countries here in Eastern Europe are, when you put Ukraine to 40, then you have 2.5 here and 3.5 in Georgia. So you have 46 million people, let's say 45 roughly. So it's about roughly 3 times of the Western Balkans, but they get much less, they get a third of the Western Balkans. Roughly, that's, man, I have to look all the numbers up, and you can check everything online if you want to go for the exact figures, because I don't have every number here by heart. When I'm sitting in the car and driving, not I'm driving, but I'm sitting next and going from Comrade in Gagauzia the model region back to Chisinau, this beautiful and very, very modern and well-developed city under DCFTA conditions. They have really prospered. Yeah? But we are not doing enough for the regions. We are not lifting the agricultural potential. That's of course on which this country is built. Yeah? And they should sell to Europe and we should buy the things, and that's the internal market, isn't it? So, where are we, Europe? Where are you? 9th of May celebrations included. But it's not good enough, the performance in reality, in terms of infrastructure, energy and investment, regional development concept, and also financial support. Europe must redistribute more, and first of all this package, but also then we need a 2% GDP redistribution level on the European level. I have made the case already several years. The frugals have blocked it, they have blocked, even decreased it, and so many things are going wrong, because if you don't put money to the European level because you have some fake subsidiarity, too much is done in Brussels. These are people with no idea of the tasks. These are guys who somehow were produced by some experts on political academy or Volkspartei or on TAS, and then they come out with no life experience, and then they have the power and they do decisions only on opinion polling and what is popular. They go to football places, think they are popular when they have some net taxpayer populism without ideas of defense and of real cost of integration and of infrastructure. No idea, no professional experience. Yeah? Then they come to power and then they say such things and then they decrease the funding and then we have war. The result of incompetence and populism is war, as we have seen it. Because our enemy, Russia, is hard. It's complicated and we are in this eternal struggle. Yeah? Maybe one day it will come, some kind of better times, but I don't see them. Russia will be in a big Yugoslavian style break-up war, and we will have actually to invest much more in our defense and in our security, because the effects might be very harmful. And then for the rebuilding of what is left over from this internal combustion of the Russian civil war to come. Yes, guys, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. And let's please, please, please bring in Moldova and Ukraine into safety. And we have all the concepts, we have all the models, and we have some clarity. We need to win the war first. Obviously, we need to win the war, and there will be some kind of armistice in some time to come. Maybe not so soon, because there's hardly any win to be portrayed for the Russians. Yeah? But there will be, and then we have to think about serious levels of economic victory in terms of unification, because the status quo will not be stable, unfortunately. I had the idea for a German peace treaty in Ukraine, but that is not on the agenda under this kind of context. Yeah? So reconquest is an option, and we need to really seriously see that we are attractive enough by the Euro, by NATO, by the EU, in order to make sure that we are successful and we have no traffic. There are traffic fines, my driver is very good. You have a good sharp eye for the police. He really doesn't want to pay any fines, and he knows where to stop, and I'm very lucky to drive this afternoon with a very experienced man who was bringing me to Comrade. I'm happy for that. It worked out very fine. Now I told you a little bit what we have to do financially as well, in terms of subsidiarity, in terms of also financial responsibility, because we are driving here on infrastructure which is good, but in the beginning of the 2000s was achievement in the Balkans. Yeah? But we are now a much different level of infrastructure already, and we need to go into similar levels. This is good here, but it's only a small part towards, that's a nice lake here. Хорошо. I like it. Good. We have beautiful Chisinau now ahead of us. I will make a separate video, but this beautiful lake here, I like it. Chisinau is starting now. More to come from beautiful Pax Europiana. Please support Moldova in the European Union, NATO and the Euro. Thanks a lot. Bye.